Today's video is all about the Mariner class, which is also the newest class that has come to be in Lord of the Rings Online. Mariners are known as being a very similar concoction, we'll say, to the fencing or almost like a sword fighter class. This is, like I mentioned, one of the newer classes in the game. Came out about almost 3 years ago now. But Mariners are confident melee fighters who wield swords deftly to challenge the forces of evil. Mariners have an innate sense of flow of combat and use their balance to adjust their fighting style to best fit the moment. They also know how to use combinations of individual movements to create powerful skill chains, and that's according to the Lord of the Rings game itself on what Mariners are. To know a little bit more about the lore, I'm just going to read this quick sentence for you guys as well. Mariners are resourceful combatants capable of using strange devices as well as their surroundings to aid them in battle. This class is inspired by Arendelle, and pretty much it's just an overall kind of complicated class if you ask me. But let's kind of break it down a little bit. Starting with some basic information about Mariners, this is an advanced class, which I would highly agree with. One thing that does make them advanced is the fact that they have this little balance system with these almost like measurable components called fore and aft. It pretty much is like a balancing beam, and if you go too far and put all of your, I guess, attack skills or, definitely increase your damage, if you kind of weigh that too far over, you can actually get dazed. So there are limitations to this class because you have to pay attention to your little balance beam. Make sure you're not going too far on one side of the balance beam in comparison to the other. And then the other side of it, there's one side that's all about damage, melee, attacking, and then the other side of it is defense. So making sure you're taking a step back, or at least making sure that you're being a little bit more careful and not going too far off the deep end or the balance beam. And just making sure that you're staying aligned with both. You're attacking when you need to, but you're not being too, all in on attacking, and making sure that you keep up your defense. It's kind of a cool concept, but the way it's done is complicated. It is complicated. I will give you guys that. The available races that are able to play Mariner include High Elf, Man, River Hobbit, and Stout Axe Dwarves. So definitely the newer races that have been implemented in the game, and Man, of course. So not all races can play this class. I think that with this class, it is a lot to learn, and I think if you're someone who wants to pay the LOTRO points to play it, which I believe is around 1,000 or 2 LOTRO points, I think you might be a little discouraged by how complicated the class can be. So I would wait if you are someone who's thinking about paying to play it personally, but that's, your choice. In terms of armor level, they do have a medium armor rating that they can utilize. Definitely kind of think of like burglars when you think of Mariners in terms of difficulty and the way that positional damage works, which is super critical for Mariners. Really, the only classes that utilize positional damage are burglars and Mariners. And burglars, like I mentioned in the previous guide, they need to attack from the back. Mariners have to attack from the front to have the best damage output on their enemies. So that is also another thing to kind of keep in mind with Mariners. They are sword fighters, or kind of like a sword fighter class anyway. So keep that in mind when you think about people fencing. What do you see? I mean, they're not backstabbing their enemies. They're definitely better in the front, keeping all of their feet together essentially, and making sure that they coordinate their attacks. Going off of the weapon proficiencies that are best for Mariner, I would definitely mention that daggers, dual wielding, that's important, and one-handed swords are useful for Mariners during their time. So they don't have many weapons that they can wield, but they have just enough to kind of do some good damage. No, they will not use a shield, unfortunately, but in terms of how they kind of work and what the different class trait trees are, there are different abilities that can help them out, and I think that they're very flexible with what kind of what kind of role you kind of want to utilize your Mariner for. So one thing I like about Mariner is the yellow line, because their yellow line is a bit of like more AoE. They have a few root or stun abilities. So I kind of think of a lore master in that way. But trust me, like red and blue line are nothing like that. So it's nice because they have different kind of roles that you can utilize, and they do have this sort of like variety or flexibility in terms of how you want to use them as just a general class. But I would mention again that they're kind of similar to burglars in the class learning difficulty and the positional damage key thing that you got to keep in mind. I'm kind of going out of order here, but let's take a look at the class trait trees just so I can kind of better explain that, and then we'll furthermore go over into important stats that you got to utilize, and also I will explain later the best race for this class. So here are the class trait trees that are available for mariners. The blue line is called the shanty caller. It sings shanties to coordinate and motivate allies. The red line is the duelist, which weaves dramatic... Oh my god, that elk was crying. Anyway, the duelist weaves dramatic combinations or strikes to deal relentless damage, and then the yellow line, the rover, uses anything on hand to hinder foes. So to kind of break this down for you, all right, I had to consult my script before I give bad information, guys, but blue line is all about like healing or buffing, so you can definitely help yourself out a lot, especially if you do feel like you're squishier. That might be a better class line for you. Red is definitely, of course, more melee DPS, which is always a decent pick for soloing anyway. Yellow line is kind of where I prefer to play Mariner. It is more ranged AoE attacks, or it's kind of like that more support-based role that Mariners can utilize. So Mariners are definitely a support or an offensive or DPS-based class. So you can kind of utilize either or for raiding. If I'm going to be totally honest with you guys, for Mariners, I don't really see how critical they are yet for raids. I don't know if they really have a place where people are really like, yes, I need a Mariner like all the time for certain raids. But if you were going to be a Mariner for raiding, I would probably say yellow line might be your best bet here, just because there are some rooting abilities, kind of like lore masters can do. But you also have more AoEs, which can just help with general enemies that are going into your raids. Maybe not the bigger bosses, but it can definitely help with more quantity of enemies, we'll say. But I do personally like yellow line more for soloing, even just because I like some of the AoE abilities. But you can pick either or for soloing's sake. You should be fine with any of these. The kicker, I guess, is that a lot of people do use blue line for their Mariners, and they seem to have a better, time facing enemies with a blue line. So I would say that majority of people seem to tend to go with blue line Mariners now. But it's kind of all over the place. It's like a mixed bag, so you can't go wrong with either. But I just personally, I'm over here rooting for yellow line. In terms of what stats are best for you or what can kind of help you out, let's go over the character sheet. For Mariners, you can definitely see how agility is going to help them because they have an increase in physical mastery. They have the parry rating, they have critical, the physical mitigation, and tactical mitigation, which is good for them. So I would try to go more towards the agility route if I were you. Definitely utilize physical and tactical mitigations where you can. And just for sure, to kind of make it clear too, parrying is super important for Mariners. So anything that utilizes parrying to help you is gonna be very good for you here. I would even go as far to increase your resistance rating where you can, because I feel like Mariners are very squishy. In my own personal opinion, they're just not quite well-rounded as much as I'd like, but they're super flexible, which is a huge plus. But in terms of like armor, you kind of take a few hits. For the stats or the virtues I would utilize to help you out, I would definitely go determination for that agility. You also get the physical mastery, which is good for you, do more damage, and crit is always nice, right? I also went with Valor because of the physical mastery and the finesse rating. You don't have to go with Valor here if you don't want, but I just figured for a higher damage roll, especially for soloing, that helped me best. Also, wit is always great for everything. I always pick wit for any class, any and every class. And then in terms of the last two, I would kind of recommend, I went with loyalty because I'm all about getting more morale. The armor value is exactly what I was looking for with my Mariner because I wanted to feel a little buffer with whatever I had. And I picked Fortitude for the max morale and resistance rating. In all honesty though, I'd probably pick something else. Like honestly, I might even pick like Fidelity here. Innocence is also another good one because it has a physical mitigation and resistance rating. So it's kind of similar to how the Guardian looked, but not exactly, because you're going to implement more agility based skills. So in all honesty, when it comes down to like the 5 virtues I would focus on, I would definitely go with like determination, valor, wit, loyalty. And then for the 5th one, you can kind of utilize whatever. I went with more fortitude because I just wanted to try it out with more max morale, but I would definitely try to go with like innocence here, even fidelity if at all possible, if that's what you're leaning towards. And last but not least, when it comes down to which race you should play, I would definitely go for River Hobbit because they do have a dagger increase bonus that goes with their passive racial traits. They also have an agility bonus, which is good for mariners, of course, and it scales up with your level. And then they also have a bonus to certain virtues, so you'll get a +1 rating on virtues like wit, which are actually super important, especially when it comes down to the stats that wit offers for you. I think that was also a good bonus to River Hobbits, and there's just overall a better time or opportunity you can have with the agility rating, and also a little bit of vitality as well that are added with the River Hobbit race. But again, it doesn't really matter too much on the race and LOTRO. It doesn't help you too much by, you know, picking a certain race or class combo, but I do think if you want to have the best potential with a mariner, I think that River Hobbit is your best bet then. But that is all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and please let me know down in the comments what you think about mariner class, if you do enjoy the class, or if you're a little like, oh, this is too overwhelming still, let me know. And also check out the rest of the class guides that are going up. I'm updating them all year for you guys, so hopefully you can check out all the classes with no issues and know exactly what you're doing. And of course, until next time, you better stay weird, you weird weirdos.